Good evening and welcome to our program tonight. I am Dr. Steve Gerhard. I serve the Governor Mifflin community as the Superintendent of Schools for the Governor Mifflin School District. And I welcome all of you to what we hope is the first of what will become an annual event that we believe is very important to hold in regards to the safety, health, and overall well-being of our students. As a new superintendent, I believe very much in the importance of community engagement. And when thinking about a first topic for how to engage our community, I thought that there really is no more important topic than the safety of our students. Tonight we are thrilled to be joined in this community-wide partnership by people on stage, as well as other people in the audience that we have. Tonight we have representation from members of our local school board. We have representatives from our staff and administration, members of our local township and borough councils, members of our local police, fire, and EMT organizations. We have clergy from our community churches, and the reason we all are here are students who were greeted this evening that represent our high school club, Students Against Destructive Decisions. Also joining us a little bit later in the program will be Senator Judith Schwank, and if she's able to come in, I want to make sure I introduce her as she wants to make sure that she makes an appearance here tonight in support and partnership of our efforts. Joining me on stage for the first part of our evening program are various representatives in our community who play critical roles in providing education and guidance on issues relative to keeping our kids safe. It is my pleasure to welcome our panelists, whom in a moment I will ask to introduce themselves to the audience. When I think about tonight's topic and the role our schools play as the center of our community, I think about where we learned what to do in the event of a fire or weather emergency in school. Now let us stroll down memory lane and go even further. And the lights are so bright I can't see you, so I won't be able to see if you raise hands or not. But how many of us remember the air drills, the air raid drills that we might have had to do in school? Ducking under the desks or into the student over at the old junior high and going down into the bomb shelter. But there were things that we did that prepared ourselves not only for how to deal with an event in school, but also how to deal with events in our workplace or in our homes. The learning that we received as a student from kindergarten all the way through grade 12, each and every year, is what has trained us well in what to do in the event of an emergency, whether it be in school, whether it be in our home, or whether it be in our workplace. Now the time's called for our community, in partnership with its schools, to extend our safety education and preventative measures to go beyond fire and weather emergency to include other types of emergencies, such as an active hostile. Additionally, though, I want to challenge us to extend our understanding beyond just how to react to a situation and think about what our community efforts could look like to educate and care for the safety, the health, and the well-being of the whole child. It is with this holistic view that we are pleased to present a panel that represents a variety of topics relative to this conversation. Following our panel presentation, I will invite you to visit one of the breakout sessions sponsored this evening by each of our panelists, where they will be able to go a little bit further and deeper into the topic that they're here representing. For this portion of the program, we hope that we give you a good general sense of the views and insights that each of our panelists have to share in this larger conversation. On behalf of the Governor Mifflin School District, we thank Service Access Management, the Berks County Commissioners for supporting the attendance of Richard Ford here this evening. Thank the Caron Foundation for their support in having Terrie here to represent the Caron Foundation with us, the District Attorney's Office and Detective Robert Heiden, and our own Director of Safe Schools, Mr. John Yount. With that, I want to ask each one to introduce themselves and provide a little brief introduction of the role, especially in the context of this conversation this evening. I know this looks a little bit like a presidential debate. If Donald Trump shows up, I grab the mic, I'm not sure, but no debating. So with that, Richard, why don't you start us off and introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. My name is Richard Ford. I'm the Director of Operations for Service Access and Management here in Berks County. Sam works on behalf of the county, GMHS to help residents of the county access various services, mental health services, early intervention, IED, crisis services, truancy services here in Berks.
Okay, great. Terrie?
Good evening, I'm Terrie Taylor. I'm a Student Assistance Program Specialist with the Caron Foundation. I currently work at Exeter and Twin Valley School Districts. SAP is a program that's available to every student in the county, and we provide psychosocial educational support groups on various issues, as well as comprehensive behavioral health assessments to help the child and family access treatment.
Great, thank you. Detective Heiden?
Good evening, my name is Robert Heiden. I'm a detective at Berks County Detective, part of the District Attorney's Office. Our job is to assist and follow up with major crimes that occur in the county. That includes crimes against children and forensic crimes. We assist all of the police departments and will follow up on any type of crime against a child.
Great, thank you for being here. John?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yount. Most of you know me, or probably know of me at least, as the Director of Safe Schools here at Governor Mifflin. I will give you more of a bio and kind of a role description whenever we go to our breakout session. But just so you know, my job is primarily to keep your kids safe at all times and at all costs.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We have some questions that we want to ask each panelist to respond to, and then some questions for each individual to help facilitate our conversation this evening. So, first question, let's start with Detective Heiden. Each generation can be defined by the times in which they were a student. What is this generation experiencing that may be completely different than what we experienced in our youth? And how has this challenged us to keep them safe?
This generation, Generation Z, is all about high tech. If you think about it, I'm 50 years old. When I was a teenager, going into high school, we were just hoping that mom and dad might let you use the phone, or mom and dad, maybe even if you were very social, put that third or second line into your home. Nowadays, you have our students are at a very young age, at 6 months of age, they have a replica of a cell phone as a toy. By the time they go to school, a lot of them have some type of cell phone, most likely a smartphone. And by the time you get to high school, junior high and high school, they've had this smartphone for years. And it's part of that. And now we have instant access to people throughout the world, which puts them in danger. And they get information in like bursts between Snapchat, which is only 10 seconds, Vine is 6 seconds. So it's very high tech, it's very fast, it's very in your face.
John, you want to expand as you see it?
Yeah, definitely. We're about the same age, so I can relate to how archaic, I guess, things were, at least technologically, when I was in high school. And definitely what I see is a lot of our problems come from social media. It's just a huge problem. Our students have a hard time getting away from problems that they would have been able to walk away from in my generation, I guess, if you will, and then they just can't get away from it now. So that's definitely a huge issue for us here at the school.
Richard?
Yeah, the technology piece, I remember in high school going to basketball courts and people having these big bag phones. I'm sure you guys remember those, and people driving around the cars and with that technology. And now my 5-year-old is trying to convince me that he needs a cell phone so that he can get on the internet and look things up. So the technology has definitely been a big change over the years. People's access to information, good or bad, and it seems like, people can get things at the tips of their fingers. The other big thing that's different, I think, is our sense of community. Our sense of community has changed over the years for various reasons, economic or social. There's a lot of things that's different. It used to be, when I would go home, that the neighbors or other folks in the community was asking how my day was at school, what's going on, and hopefully I didn't get in trouble that day because they were also on me for that. And things have changed now. That doesn't happen as much. So community has definitely changed.
And Terrie?
I agree about the social media and technology as well. I think the other thing with this generation is a lot of them are growing up post 9/11. So they have been desensitized to violence in the media. They're exposed to so many different things now, more than we were, and I'm not that much younger than my comrades, for lack of a better word, on stage here. But the things that are on primetime TV and are shown to our kids, even younger children, are quite different than they were 20, 30 years ago. And I think we also now are in a culture that if you're having a problem or you're having an issue, there's a pill that will make you feel better. So unfortunately, kids are growing up without learning conflict resolution skills or coping mechanisms, and instead are looking for other ways to help them feel better about their difficulties.
Great. Richard, I'll start with you for the next question. Could you share with us what are some successes that you have found either in your work or from the larger field that you feel have some real implications for our community to consider in implementing to help keep our kids safe?
I think some of the major successes that I've seen are events like this. For instance, we come together, we talk about some of the things that are going on. Years ago, that never really happened. With the advent of the social media and different types of technology, we're able to outreach to people, we're able to communicate issues more widely. So I think events like this, people coming together, talking about some of the current topics to keep kids safe, also to keep kids in school, has been very beneficial. There's been a lot of talk, with all of the school shootings and different things going on. There's a lot of programs that are now out there that are helping schools to prepare themselves for these difficult events. It's good to see that there's been money available from the federal government, from state agencies, to provide those types of services to schools. So I think it's been very helpful.
Right. Terrie, if you can expand from your point of view.
I think the most important thing you can do is, again, as Richard said, have a better sense of community. When I grew up on the 4-block walk from the house to the bus stop, there were block parents. I knew all of my neighbors. They all knew my parents. We all saw each other and said hello. Nowadays, you might not even know who your neighbors are on your block. The other thing that I have found is if you can make a genuine connection with a student, that goes so much farther than being able to fix their problems or being able to solve everything for them. It just lets them know that their feelings and their opinions are valid, and that encourages them to open up and have frank conversations with you. Whether it's a parent, a neighbor, a friend's parent, a teacher, if they genuinely feel that you care about them, they will talk to you.
Thanks. How about best practices or some successes from the field that you've found in your line of work?
I think we're always going to, unfortunately, have some type of level of crime, but it's because of community outreach, community programs like this that we see a dip or some type of lull, and that just could show the success that this community is coming together between parents, students themselves, teachers, faculty, and the rest of the community. So when we see a dip in cases that come to us, I believe it's a good reflection that the community is working together to help our children stay safe. The other side of that would be when our department becomes proactive, and a lot of police departments do this, but we're proactive, we're out there, we have detectives, and we work with South Heidelberg Township, and we're out on the internet. we have 3 guys that's part of their job is they're out there looking for bad guys, looking for predators who might want to do harm to our children. And the success is when we do get these guys and we make those arrests, and we make several a year. And I think between the two, that is the plus that we can see from our evaluation.
Good, thanks. John?
Well, Terrie kind of stole some of my thunder, but I think it just shows how important what I was about to say must be.
Yeah.
And that is that connection with the students. There's so much going on with, tying it into social media, the busyness of life, requirements of education, pressures on them from schools and from home. Pressures on themselves, they put a lot of pressure on themselves to succeed so they can go to the college of their choice and so on. Pressures that we probably in our age group, again, really have a hard time relating to. Breakdown families all across the board. And sometimes they just need somebody to talk to. They need somebody that can relate or at least listen. And I think the successes that I've seen in the year that I've been here, I can trace all of those successes to the relationship that I have with that student.
Great. Detective Heiden, to you, it's a little bit what we talked about earlier with the generations, but we know that in youth there is this element of invincibility that youth have. Live for the day, not for 20 years from now, and thinking about that. And I know many times when I talk with parents, we talk about the concerns we have in the conversations with students using social media and not realizing the long-term implications of some things that they might post online. Can you share with us how you've seen this idea of invincibility, how it's influenced students' use of social media?
I agree with Terrie that children are kind of desensitized nowadays to post 9/11 crew, and it's actually, this is the students in college right now, your freshmen and sophomore, the last ones probably have a recollection of what happened that day. And as Terrie said, media is changing so much. And you throw in games and you throw in everything else you can do with the internet, and it's all out there, and they never think out there is going to come home to them. And whether it's a child out there who is the cyberbully or the victim of cyberbullying, they just don't understand it. Even though it's just words, it's out there in the cloud, it's going to come back to them. If reports are filed, if the school district has to file a report, the parents file a report, the police can have access to all that stuff, all that information, all those records we can get. And also with such things as Facebook and other social media apps, kids have 3,000 friends. They really don't have 3,000 friends, but in their mind, they're 3,000 of my best friends, and they're going to be there for me, and they're really not. They still have what we would have, which was a handful of people who were real close in your circle, and our students don't understand that, the difference between real life and the internet life.
Terrie, the battle on drug and alcohol abuse, unfortunately, is not something that is new in society. However, can you share with us what you see now in the conversation that might be different than what we've seen 10, 15 years ago, and help us as parents understand what we should know in raising our kids?
Well, I think as technology has advanced, so has science, and people have developed stronger drugs. The drugs that are available nowadays are much more potent than they were 20 years ago. They're also much more widely available. Drugs are no longer an inner city problem or a big city problem. The big problem is in the suburban schools, because that's where the kids can afford the more designer drugs and the upscale drugs that you're hearing about. Most kids that are developing problems with prescription medications are getting their drugs from home. Because most people, myself included, usually don't have your medicine cabinet locked. So anyone can go in and take whatever's in there. I think one of the biggest things that we're running into is the legalization of marijuana. Some states, as you know, have made it legal, and that kind of creates a mindset that it really isn't that bad then. And everybody does it, and it's a rite of passage and all of those misconceptions. But marijuana is an addictive substance, and students who use marijuana, parents need to see that this is a warning sign and it's dangerous. And again, addiction and the dangers of drugs are in every school. It doesn't matter your financial status, your social status, your race, your religion. You can have a straight-A student, star athlete, homecoming queen. They are possibly using drugs. So for the parents who say, oh, my kid would never do that, it is your kid.
Can you give us 2 or 3 warning signs? You had mentioned earlier, what are some warning signs, or that there are warning signs? Can you give us an idea of what some of those might be?
Sure. Some of them are difficult because they're also behaviors of the typical teenager. Mood swings, we all have that. Separation from family, a lot of teenagers go through that. But if you're seeing dramatic changes in your child, sudden change in who they hang out with, sudden change in their appearance, they've gone from being preppy to emo, for lack of a better word. Needing money all the time. Mom, I need more lunch money. I just gave you $30 2 days ago. Yeah, I spent it at school. Those are things you should look out for. Those are the big ones.
Rich, what are some of the misunderstandings that you see that may exist about service access management and what it can provide our students and families relative to mental health services?
Well, service access management, we pride ourselves on providing whatever services we can, whatever services and information we can to people that come in, kind of a one-stop shop for all services, whether it's children's services, adult services. So often people will come in and they say, I need my child to see a therapist. And it's like, well, okay, we can help you access that service. And they're like, well, you don't provide therapy? It's like, no, we don't do that. So oftentimes people are looking for that service when they come in our doors. And really we just help them facilitate those services. Some of the other things that people think is that, they can come in and they can get medication from us. We have a crisis center there, and they think, well, they must have a doctor. And it's, no, we don't have a doctor, but we can help you, connect to a doctor. So whether it's mental health services or medical care, people come in and complaining about physical ailments, and they're expecting for us to fix that for them. But that's not something that we do. It's not a service that we can provide. But again, we can help people get connected to things. So, those types of misunderstandings about what SAM actually does and what can offer, sometimes can serve as a barrier to the people that's walking in. Of course, it's frustrating, if you come in and you're looking for something, and that provider can't just give it to you. So, we try to talk to folks about, patience and being able to work with us to help themselves. So that's one of the biggest misunderstandings of our service.
It may sound like a stupid question. I ask them a lot, but in this case, is it a place? If I'm a parent, I have some concerns. Is it a place that I go to, or is it a number that I access? How do I even start the connection?
Yeah, actually, we do a lot of walk-in service. 19 North 6th Street is our address in Reading. So we do a lot of walk-in service. You can just come in, come up to the 3rd floor. On the 3rd floor is our intake window. And at that point, you kind of, it's the beginning of your one-stop shop. You can come in and say, this is what I'm looking for. And they can get you to the appropriate person. We also have a lot of information outside on the table that folks can grab for pretty much all of our services. So all of our brochures are out there. All of our information is available to you. As I said at the beginning, we work on behalf of the county, so we contact with the county MHIED to help people access services. So if you need services or someone needs services, you can absolutely come into our office or give us a call. We also have crisis on site, and our crisis center is actually mobile. So if someone's in the community and needs our services, we can come out and see you as opposed to having to come into the office.
And you talk about connecting with providers too. So if I understand correctly, if I were to come in to your office location on the 3rd floor and you connect me with some additional help, it's not necessarily at that same location, or it could be somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a network of providers that we contract with to help access mental health services, drug and alcohol services. Actually, TASK is also in our same building on the 3rd floor, right next to our window. So that's a service that you can connect with there as well for early intervention services, IBD services. Like I said, we're pretty much a one-stop shop. So if you see one of our folks, one of our intake specialists, they can help you connect. They'll either give you the information. If you feel like that, you can go and connect on your own, then you can do that. If you need assistance in connecting, we can call with you to help you get those appointments scheduled. Anything that we can do to help you out.
Great, thank you. John, we had mentioned on the panel earlier this evening reference to 9/11, and many of us could probably capture where we were for that event. But I think also going a couple years earlier, the events of Columbine, I think resonate in our memory as well. But arguably that event could be attributed to what we saw in the rise of safety measures enacted in our schools. Unfortunately, we continue to see various events occurring in our schools, our workplaces, our shopping centers, that sort of thing. But what have we learned from these events that have now changed? What is some of the best recommendations for how to respond to an active hostile intruder, either in our schools, our workplace, the shopping center, that may look different today than when it did immediate post-Columbine?
Yeah, it has changed dramatically. Say right around Columbine, or when Columbine took place, an active shooter situation was considered a SWAT incident. Typically, law enforcement would surround the place and contain and wait for SWAT's arrival. Well, what we found out at Columbine is while SWAT was on their way, and police officers were outside containing, as they were trained to do, people were dying inside the building. And so law enforcement started to see a shift in prioritizing our training. Instead of giving it to our SWAT guys, we started to give it to the initial responders. It started out with waiting for a 4 or 5 man team. That was kind of the next evolution. Well, we're not going to wait for SWAT, but we're going to wait for the first 4 or 5 responding officers. And then we pared it down to if 2 or 4 get there in time, send those guys in, to the point where it actually came down to, if you get there and you're the only police officer on scene, you need to get in the building. And so that's some of the changes that we have seen take place from the law enforcement perspective. But what I definitely see is the need to get that training to our teachers, because they are the first line of defense for our kids, which we've been doing, training for them, just looking at security measures all the way around. Security is basically a fairly simple thing, but there are challenges that are presented because we are also, we're not here for security, we're here to educate kids, but we do need to keep them safe, so there are some challenges there as well.
And going to what was mentioned earlier, when teaching fire an evacuation to a fire emergency is a very protocol, very proceduralized response. In a hostile intruder situation, it's not always.
Exactly.
Because every event could look very different. And so doing a lot of the training about thinking of how to respond in that moment is become more important now than, say, 10, 15 years ago.
That's correct.
Detective, parent monitoring of social media seems to range from non-existent, students just carte blanche using social media, their phones, to parents who we see install apps to follow every move their child makes online. So what do you recommend as a best practice for parents to help create that environment of safe yet savvy and appropriate social media use?
I think overall it comes down to one word: diligence. Every family is different. I can't really sit here and tell you how you should do it. There's no way you should. Each child, student is different. Their access to the internet is different. Each family is different. But there should be some rules put into place. And that student and child should know that there could be negative consequences if they don't follow those rules. So I think it has to be some point of diligence on the parents, which could be work, and you could get some flack from your child. but you need to do that. It's the way smartphones are treated nowadays. Computers would be maybe back in our day, diaries, where somebody had a diary and it was kept in your bedroom. You wrote in it every day, and it was only for your eyes. And 9 times out of 10, mom and dad weren't going to look at it. But if you think about it, that diary only allows you to stay within your room. This smartphone takes you everywhere. So it's really work for the parents, but you need to set up some rules, and whatever they are, whatever's best for your family, just be diligent in following up on them, and don't be lax.
Can I ask you a rule that I have in place and see what you think about it? I tell my child, my daughter, your grandmothers are on either side of you watching what you're texting and what you're doing.
Yes.
So it's not okay for the grandmas, it's not okay for that online.
That's it. If you want to say to your grandmother, your grandfather, then you should be putting up online.
Good. Thank you. Terrie, who or what do you see are the biggest influencers when it comes to drug and alcohol abuse?
Surprisingly, it's parents. Kids want to talk to you about what's going on in their lives. As much as they bicker and give you some backlash, they want structure, they want rules, they want to please you. Every child I have worked with who has used drugs or alcohol, their number one concern is that they've let their parents down, or that my parents are going to be upset with me. So I think the biggest thing I say to parents is you're not here to be their friend, you're here to be their parent. So give them rules, know who their friends are, know where they're going, who are they hanging out with. Have you met those children's parents? Do you know enough to feel comfortable letting your child hang out with the people they're hanging out with?
Thank you. Rich, to you. Once we get past some of the stigmas surrounding mental health, what are some of the first steps toward identifying an issue or getting someone help?
Well, I think that, with our kids these days, it's tough as was pointed out that, it's tough to differentiate between what's developmentally appropriate and what may be a problem. But any significant changes in behavior or communication patterns is something that we definitely want to pay attention to. If it's a child that, when they came in from school, they're ready to engage you and talk to you about things, and then all of a sudden they're not, and they're withdrawn to their room. Someone's very active in sports, and then all of a sudden they're not. Those are some things that you definitely want to pay attention to. When it comes to the mental health aspect, oftentimes you're going to see some pretty significant and concerning changes in behavior around aggression. You might see some of that. We talk about the social media. You might start noticing things on Facebook or other social media sites that could be concerning. With people posting things that could be problematic, which is why it's important that you can monitor those types of activities. The best thing that you can do in terms of getting help is first to listen. As a parent, you have to listen to your kids. And my kids probably think I'm harassing them most times because I'm always questioning, so how was your day? What's going on with you? Yeah, I noticed this, I saw that. Tell me about this. Having dinner, having time to eat with your kids is very important. I remember a few years ago, I was actually the director of a truancy program, started the program here, and one of the things that we told parents was, spend time eating with your kids, because that's when conversation happens. That's when you can tell things are going on. That's a very powerful time. So take every opportunity that you have to interact with your kids, to see what's going on with them, to be involved with them. And then in terms of help, there's a lot of resources. The community is rich in terms of resources. Service access management is just one resource. And we happen to be the place that, we can get you to a lot of others, but, there's caring teachers, there's other professionals in the school, counselors, SAP coordinators, there's police are out there. There's a lot of people that you network with. So So when in doubt, tell someone else is kind of my theory and what I see with my kids. If you think something's going on, tell them adult, tell someone else, get their feedback on it.
Great, thanks. John, we often talk about how we would react to a breach of security in our schools, and you had mentioned in a previous answer some work that's being done, but can you share with us a little bit more of some of the proactive measures that you take as well as we take as a school daily or regularly to create a safe environment?
Yeah, sure. One of the things I think, I at least hope, is that my presence is a deterrent and an obvious change in security measures here at the school. Increased and maintained vigilance. Vigilance is a huge part of it. That just by my presence, reminding people constantly to be vigilant, I think that's a huge part of it. Security isn't always expensive, it's not fancy, it's not complicated. It boils down to, and I don't mean to continue to use the same word, but it boils down to vigilance. If people are continuously aware of their surroundings, report things that they see that are out of place, and are constantly reminded of the simple little things that you can do. I always make reference to when I was a police officer investigating a series of break-ins to car vehicles, and one of the things that I noticed was none of the cars were locked. So what's security number one? Lock your car door, and you're going to deter a lot of that crime. So we have that. We have a single entrance into our buildings. All the other doors are locked. We have security surveillance system. We do have other hardware improvements that we're looking at. We meet with the police chiefs. I meet with the police chiefs monthly and their designees. We have a very good relationship with our municipal officers and firemen. All of those things, just having a good rapport with those guys and gals and our local law enforcement is a huge asset. I can't be everywhere at once, and those guys are there when I need them, and their response is phenomenal. So all those different things all together, work together to keep us all safe.
And part of our partnership with them too is having them come visit the school or be outside the school,
right.
Just there too, being a presence as much as possible in the policing efforts. So, great. So in wrap up, I'm going to have each one of you, as we know in our program, we're going to be moving to breakout sessions. So what I'd like each of you to do is just share in the breakout sessions, what would be what's probably the biggest takeaway that you hope is going to come out of the breakout session that you have. And so in a way, if somebody's not able to attend your session, they can at least get a nugget to take with them. So we'll start, Rich, with you.
Well, in our session, I'm lucky enough to have Andrea and Amy here who do a lot of the work, both in our intake department and our crisis department. What I hope to do in our session is to allow people to ask any questions that they have in terms of how to access services with us, or to talk about things that are specific to case management, specific to crisis services. With keeping kids safe, I want to make sure that parents and other professionals know what it is that we can offer to you and what services we can deliver ourselves. And again, if you can't make it to the sessions, we have plenty of pamphlets out there that describe our services, and there's also some bags. Please get some bags that has our contact information and all those things on it as well.
Okay, great. Terrie?
I will be presenting on more things to look for with your kids, some potential warning signs, as well as tips for parents, things you can do to talk to your children about the dangers of drug and alcohol abuse and addiction, things you can do to intervene. I will also be joined by Kathy Heller, who is the SAP coordinator for the Governor Mifflin School District. So any questions you have about the services specific to Mifflin, she will be able to answer you.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to talk about two main things. One, once you push that button, it's out there. And number two, delete doesn't mean it's gone. And a lot of the students don't realize that. So I have a little bit of a PowerPoint just to show some of the things our forensics division does and what we come up with when we take a look at a phone. And if you can't make that, pamphlets back over to the right, out in the hallway, and some pens. Take the pens.
Great, thanks. John?
The probably the takeaway that I would like you to have from me, if you don't get to attend my breakout session, is that I am one person, but I'm not alone when it comes to keeping your kids safe. We work together corporately. I mean, it's a team approach, and that I will not rest. If there's if a new product comes out, I look into it. If a new training method comes out, I look into it, attend the training if it's available, and so on. So we're doing everything that we can to just keep your kids, and I like to think of them as my kids, if you don't mind me saying it. I want to do everything to keep my kids safe in this building and in the district.
Great, thanks. Have a round of applause for our panelists.